When compost is working the way it should, it becomes the richest, darkest, most valuable material in your entire garden. But when compost goes wrong, it becomes a smelly, slimy, stubborn pile that simply refuses to break down. Every gardener, whether beginner or seasoned, runs into compost problems eventually. The real difference between a failing pile and a thriving one is learning to recognize warning signs early and knowing exactly how to correct them. Today I'm giving you the 5 most common signs your compost is failing, what each one means, and how you can save your pile starting right now. The first sign your compost is in trouble is a strong, sour, or rotten odor. Healthy compost should smell earthy, warm, and slightly sweet, never like garbage or sewage. A foul smell tells you the pile has turned anaerobic, meaning there isn't enough oxygen. Without oxygen, the materials begin to rot instead of decompose naturally. The solution is to reintroduce air and correct the balance. Start by turning the pile thoroughly, break up clumps, pull apart wet mats of grass or kitchen scraps, and make sure the entire heap gets fluffed. Then, add carbon-rich brown materials, such as dry leaves, shredded cardboard, or wood chips. A good ratio is 2 to 3 parts browns for every 1 part greens. This absorbs excess moisture, restores airflow, and brings your compost back into a healthy aerobic state. The second sign is a slimy texture, especially noticeable in kitchen scraps, grass clippings, or weeds. Sliminess means the greens have saturated the pile with too much nitrogen and moisture, causing them to clump together. The compost cannot breathe and begins to compact. Again, the cure is increasing carbon and reducing moisture. Add a thick layer of browns, enough to coat the wet materials completely. For example, if you just added a bucket of wet kitchen scraps, sprinkle in 2 buckets of shredded leaves or cardboard strips. Mix thoroughly. Compost should feel like a wrung-out sponge, not soggy and not dusty. The third sign your compost is failing is that it's simply not heating up. A living compost pile should generate heat in its core, often reaching temperatures between 120 and 150 degrees Fahrenheit. That warmth is the sign that microorganisms are active and breaking down material at a healthy rate. If your pile feels cool and stays that way for weeks, it means you're lacking one of 3 things: nitrogen, moisture, or mass. To fix this, first check moisture. If the materials feel bone dry, sprinkle water evenly as you mix. Never pour water on top because it runs down and creates soggy pockets. If the moisture feels right, you likely need more green, nitrogen-rich materials. Now, you'll want to add things like fresh grass clippings, coffee grounds, manure, or even kitchen scraps. Just mix them right into the center, and that'll really help kick things off. The final issue, and it's an important one, may be size. If your pile is smaller than 3 feet by 3 feet, it's really going to struggle to heat up properly. You may need to gather all your compost together into a tighter, taller mound. A full, balanced, compact heap will heat up quickly, sometimes in as little as 24 hours. The fourth sign is the opposite problem, a pile that overheats and becomes bone dry. Sometimes compost gets too hot, well above 150 degrees Fahrenheit, because it contains too much nitrogen and not enough carbon or airflow. When this happens, materials begin to dry out, stall, and harden. The pile essentially burns itself out. To save an overheated compost pile, add moisture slowly while turning to spread the water evenly. Next, you'll want to mix in more browns to stabilize the nitrogen levels and rebuild the structure of your compost pile. If the pile is extremely hot, opening it up and spreading it out temporarily allows heat to escape before you reshape it into a balanced mound. Compost really thrives on balance. Too hot or too dry is just as damaging as too wet or too cold. The fifth sign your compost is failing is little to no decomposition after several months. You can tell this is happening when recognizable materials, banana peels, leaves, twigs, corn cobs, look exactly the same as the day you added them. Slow or stalled decomposition almost always comes down to poor ingredient size or poor mixing. Large intact materials take far longer to break down. To fix this, chop, shred, or break materials into smaller pieces before adding them. For example, run dry leaves through a mower, break cardboard into strips, or cut kitchen scraps into smaller chunks. Then turn the pile thoroughly. Stirring the compost every 1 to 2 weeks brings fresh oxygen into the core and redistributes microbes. Consistency is key. A pile turned regularly will always decompose faster than one left untouched. When your compost begins showing signs of revival, warming up, smelling earthy, and shrinking in volume, you'll know the corrections worked. The best compost is really built through simple habits, balancing browns and greens, keeping the right moisture level, turning consistently, and feeding the pile materials that microbes can actually process efficiently. Fixing a failing pile is never complicated once you understand what each symptom is trying to tell you. Smell reveals oxygen issues, texture reveals balance problems, temperature shows microbial activity, and appearance shows whether materials are breaking down properly. When you adjust these factors, compost transforms quickly into rich, dark, crumbly humus, the kind that changes soil structure, nourishes plants, and honestly, restores fertility more effectively than anything you can buy. If this helped you rescue your compost pile, make sure to subscribe to Gentle Herb Gardening and share this video with a gardener who struggles with composting. Healthy compost is the foundation of a thriving garden, and once you master it, everything you grow becomes stronger, richer, and more resilient.